Okay, we're going to do another episode of the TriMet Board of Directors starring Ozzy Gonzalez. And speaking of Ozzy Gonzalez, we just had a very strange interaction. So Pootie makes this tweet. Let me make it bigger so you can see it. Why don't your elites have Twitter? Run from the public at all costs, except for Ozzy Gonzalez. The mayor of Milwaukee is a clown, but at least he took time to respond in a disrespectful way. Maybe he can be on the board. Okay. And I said, I bet we won't be hearing much from Ozzy anymore now that he's chairman of the puppets, which I actually believed. I figured, okay, he's no longer just one of the puppets; he's the main puppet, and the chairman of the board there is the one that controls the board. And I've seen a lot of different chairmen. Passador was a bank president, and he ran the board like a bank president. Rick Van Beveren was actually not that bad. He was a store owner, but he got kicked off the board after that Jonathan Hunt demonstration. Kitzhaber got rid of him and installed Bruce Warner, the career technocrat who has been in almost every job around the Portland metro area. He was in Tigard, he was in Beaverton, he was in Peabody. He was in every. You should look at his resume. And now he's got his own consulting company, of course, because all of these parasites, I call them the parasite class because they hook onto the tax streams. Okay, all the money they're stealing from us goes to these government officials, and then these government officials decide who gets what, and it's all a very protected scam, and most Americans are asleep to it. But anyway, I said Ozzy's not going to talk on this anymore, and there he showed right up. I'll be back when I need a good laugh, Al. You know I take my public service seriously. It's you that I could not. I gotta love that. I mean that's good. I mean, most public officials will tweet, but they won't respond. Okay, like you see Wheeler put out a tweet, and then he gets ratioed 100 negative comments to every one, and he doesn't respond. But Ozzy responds to this stuff, which makes him unique among the elite class. He actually does respond, which I always respected that about him. Anyway, he tries to hurt my feelings, and I said, try to hurt my feelings. That shit don't work on me, and it don't. You have no idea how many people have fucking slandered me, libeled me in the 15 and 20 years I've been doing this. Nobody likes me because I criticize everybody. Okay, because I am the one constant critic of what's happening over at TriMet. Nobody else will take that position but me. And I have a lot of people that support me that let me do that for them so they don't have to be the focus of the attention because they know I don't I don't ever rat anybody. I never rat anybody ever, ever, ever. I actually lost my job at TriMet because I wouldn't rat out somebody. Um, that's one of the reasons I lost the job. They had a lot of reasons to want to get rid of me. So I said, "It don't work." I mean, and Ozzy responds, "That's where we get along, Al. It don't work on me either." Quality meme, however. So now that's actually funny. How do you not think that's funny? That's funny. And then I say, at least you seem to be much more enjoyable to watch. Simmons, she was terrible. You seem to actually be enjoying what you're doing. And he did. And we're going to watch it again. She was, and then Pootie came up. Pootie don't mince words. Okay. He just tells you right out what he thinks. And he says Simmons loved being an egotistical, miserable cunt. Remember, she's smarter than everybody else in life. And he was right. That's what she was. And so I responded, and she had no tact at all. Ozzy doesn't do that vibe, which he doesn't. Kathy should have smacked that bitch. I wish she would have got up and slapped her because she did treat her very poorly. She always talked down to her like she was stupid. At least Ozzy's respectful and treating her down. Then Ozzy comes in again. You lose me at name calling. Bye, Felicia. He calls Pootie Felicia. And then I respond, it's just figurative. It's free speech. Let's not start with this. You can't say that bullshit because look, it's Twitter. You can say whatever you want. He called me Felicia. All right. So that was that was an unexpected engagement with the new president of the TriMet board. Uh, Simmons was horrible. What I was trying to say was Warner was a career technocrat. He could slit your throat and you wouldn't even know it. Simmons was more like a Trump type character in the way that she was completely a loose cannon. She just told you we're gonna fuck you, and that's that. We're not gonna. Now I don't think this guy is gonna ever be like that. Now the thing about him is that he's an elite, and he's proud of being an elite, and he says so. But he's bilingual, okay, which means he's smarter than most people. I mean, to be fluently bilingual means you have a higher IQ than most people. It's very hard to learn another language and learn another language fluently. That's very hard to do. Let me just tell you that. Plus, he goes to Mexico a lot. Okay, so he is exposed to real poverty. So it must be part of his consciousness somewhere in there, even though he's now president of the elites of this board. And the thing called TriMet, which is just government with another name, which does the exact same thing as every other government entity, that is steals your money without your permission and then distributes it the way they want to without your consent. That's all TriMet is. And for those of you who don't understand what just happened at TriMet, I know nobody does. What they just did to you, the peasants, is they imposed this thing called austerity on you. So austerity is when they make you pay more for less, and that's what TriMet just did. They cut your service 22%. They've not restored it. They have no plans to restore it until 2030, and that's so far off, it's useless projections. And then they make you pay more. So they cut your service, and then they demand a fare increase. And there's a lot of people that don't have a choice. Yes, they do have the low income program. That's a good program. I fully support it. But I also support fare free transit. I think the only way out of this mess where the oligarchs have us is to start doing things like that. Fare free transit would actually mean equity for everybody. That's the one thing they could do that would create actual equity in their system and get rid of all of those fare Nazis. Just keep those rider guides or those crisis, whatever you want to call them. Keep them patrolling the system, but not in gangs and teams of two on trains. They just roam around. I don't understand the philosophy behind that. So, with that said, let's continue the board meeting.
Resolution 23-06-27. And this is authorizing a contract modification with Stan Tech Architecture Incorporated for design services for the 4th Bus Base Facility project. Mr. General Manager, your comments?
Presiding All right, hold on. Stop calling him presiding officer. He's the president of the board. All right, let's look at it. All right, let's expand it so you can see it. Okay. Modification. So that means you gave us a bid, but we want more. Okay. You don't see this anywhere but government. Santec Architecture for design services for the 4th bus base facility. Now, talk about absurd. They have service cut 22%, but they're spending money on a fourth garage. All right, so it's in your face. All of this corruption is in your face, and this is not just TriMet. This is all of government right now. They're right. They don't even try to hide their corruption anymore. They're going to do all these things that have no use to you, Joe citizen. You know, if they were running actual what their service used to be and they were putting more buses out, I could see it, but they're not. And they're not going to do it until 2030. So this is another useless pork barrel project, just like Better Red. They didn't need that. We're going to extend the red line to Hatfield. Well, the track was already there, man. All you had to do was run the train. But they wanted this money to go to Stacy and Whitbeck. Okay, that's one of the recipients of TriMet welfare. And they automatically get certain cuts of the tax money no matter what. And so they come up with ways to give them contracts, which is what the Better Red is. And the Better Red now is not even, there is no red line for the next 4 months, but they call it Better Red. So it's a psyop and nobody gets it. All right, so let's see what they want here. All right, federal funds. Okay. So if it's federal funds, they're going to take it. Okay, that's why the West was built, because it was federal funds. These people that are in charge will take any money that's given to them from the feds, and they will use it any way they can think of. Okay, it has federal fund support. That doesn't mean it's all federal funds. It has some federal funds. Usually these things are 50% federal, 50% local. So TriMet procured a professional design service contract due to the Federal Works Act, under which the contract is awarded to the most qualified proposer, determined to be Sandtech. Because, they don't do anything at TriMet. They don't design anything at TriMet. They contract out everything. I don't know what their capital projects department, which is huge, actually does, but they don't do any design apparently. Okay, so there it is. $5,685,000. There you go. So that's the amount of the fare increase, by the way. It's an extra 5 million. So it's just pathetic, Look at all this bureaucracy and all this. Well, oh look, the new bus facility must be in operation. Yeah, see this coincides with his big plans. But as you know, it's just completely unnecessary at this time. And I said 15 years ago that TriMet needed to stop expanding, and they didn't. Because these tax-funded bureaucracies just have a way of continuing to expand themselves. That's what they do. Oh, so they're gonna demolish the existing structure. Oh my God. Okay, so authorizes a modification by 22 million and raised the total amount to 27 million to advance the project to 100% design. That means they're not doing any actual construction. They're paying $27 million to design this bus base. And if you can't see that is pork barrel, I can't help you. It's just ridiculous. And then they do their whole diversity baloney, which is just ridiculous.
Officer Gonzalez, members of the board, if approved, this resolution sets into motion the full design of our fourth bus operations facility, or bus base, as we call them. TriMet purchased a 30-acre property on Northeast Columbia.
30 acres? Oh my God. They're just out of control over there. I mean, you can't have your service restored, but we've got unlimited money for this shit. It's just like the rest of our society. You can't get health care. You can't get, they cut your Medicaid, but it's unlimited money to kill people in Europe. It's the same fucking thing, man, over and over and over.
Boulevard in 2018 for future service needs, housing more buses, and that included our zero emissions buses. The site was previously used as a heavy equipment maintenance facility, and initially it was believed some of these structures that were on site could be repurposed and converted for bus maintenance and operations. The aim was to minimize construction costs and meet a expedited timeline for expanding TriMet bus fleet. But the project was put on hold during COVID, the pandemic, and before being revived in the summer of 22.
Of course, it should have been canceled altogether. I mean, the thing to do would have been to cancel the project altogether. But they don't do that with anything but stuff that helps people. Anything that helps funnel funds to elites remains fully funded. Anything that helps people gets cut. Standard operating procedure in this shithole country.
Last year. We've determined that renovation and temporary use of the existing buildings is not going to be feasible.
See, so there you go. So they bought it specifically so that they could use the buildings, and then they changed their mind. So that means even more money gets funneled into this. See, one thing about government is the more they fail, the more money they get. Okay? Failure equals more money when it comes to government. All those projects like Honolulu Light Rail that was years late, they got billions of extra dollars for it. Billions. I mean, they were able to keep that graft going as long as possible. So this year these people at TriMet said we're going to do this, and then they changed their minds, and so now it's going to be triple the cost. And that's how they operate, folks. That's the scam we live under.
For ongoing needs, there's extensive work at the site that's needed. The project now
So this is going to cost as much as Powell, I bet you. But don't forget, this is just design. This isn't construction. It's unbelievable. It's unfucking believable.
requires renovation and or demolition of existing structures, installation of utilities.
See, when it comes to your tax money, people like him, and the reason he gets paid so much is to make sure that money goes to the appropriate oligarchs. That's his role, and to play the cheerleader, of course. And that's why he gets paid so much. And it is a skill. I mean, I would blow the whistle on this immediately. That's why I didn't make it in this nonprofit world, because I couldn't compromise.
A stormwater system, construction of a bus maintenance facility, and an operations building.
So you can imagine what the cost of this is going to be. It's going to be the POW luxury. Did you see the little video I put on the POW? 165 million for that. This is going to even be more. And that's how they're going to pilfer your funds. That's how they pilfer your taxes.
Building and infrastructure for zero emissions buses plus other site work. The design
and the whole zero emissions buses thing, it's good. I wish they had that when I lived on 23rd, right on top of a bus route. But it's all a scam. It's just another scam, because as long as the military-industrial complex exists, everything else done in the name of saving greenhouse gases is a fraud. So it's just another giveaway to preferred, this green movement thing, which they're pushing everybody into, whether we like it or not. But this isn't going to change the atmosphere. I'm sorry to have to mention that to you.
design is currently at 5% and will require another 2 years, with the intent to begin construction in 2026 and have
great. So they're not even going to, it's going to take 2 years for them to design this. Can you believe this? It's going to take 2 years and $26 million for them to design this project. God.
facility up and running in 2029. That's necessary to meet the projected service needs, as well as to provide overflow space while our main bus operations headquarters on Southeast Center Street is renovated to accommodate zero emissions
Oh, so they're going to renovate Center Street too. Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my...
buses. The board previously approved a $5.69 million contract with Stantec for initial design services. Stantec continues to be the most knowledgeable and qualified design professional for the project. TriMet has renegotiated a new contract amount for the revised scope of work. This resolution requests authorization of $22 million in additional funding for Stantec to complete the
See, here's your $22 million fiscal cliff. There's never been a fiscal cliff. There's no fiscal cliff. It was all a lie. They're stealing your money for stuff they don't need and leaving you in the ditch. You get it?
revised design work. So the total amount of the contract is included in the Engineering, Construction, and Planning Division budget. Stantec has a workforce that is 21% minority, 35% female, and it has a goal of using DBE subcontractors for 26% of the work and has achieved 25% so far. I do recommend your approval.
Yeah. Oh, there was his Mussolini.
Thank
see
you
this-
very much for that
Whenever he gets done with his little presentations, he gives us his Mussolini look.
presentation, General Manager Dessou. Is there a motion to approve the resolution 23-06-27?
So moved.
Yep.
That was a pretty even one. Thank you. Director Kim for the motion, Director Edwards for the second. It could have been the Doppler effect, but it showed up a little later. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments before we move to vote?
Is Thomas Kim hitting on this woman? Look, they're having a little conversation there. Looks pretty. He was holding her hand, I think.
Director Edwards?
I love their little hands. Like,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, General Manager Dessou, I would like to ask, I know this is kind of out there a little bit, but sometimes things tend to move slowly with government. Has there been coordination with PBOT to meet our schedule? Because I know there needs to be improvements made to Columbia Boulevard as well as the traffic signals at the intersection on 47th, I think it is.
Yes, there's conversation taking place, and maybe Sean, if you could give him a little bit more insight, that would be great.
Green light. Hello, I'm Sean Batty. I'm the Director of Design and Construction. That's one of the three departments in our Engineering, Construction, and Planning division. To my right is Nick Johnson, who's the Project Manager. Really appreciate the question. And Nick, if you could just...
yeah, they always appreciate the question. Don't you love the way the standard is? We love you. Thank you for the questions. A great question. The standard ass kissing of all the people that are making all the money to the fake board. And there's the other fake board member. He looks mean, doesn't he? I wonder how he's going to be.
Provide a response. We'd appreciate it.
Sure. PBOT's LID project, which will provide the street improvements around our site, is currently scheduled to go to have a contractor on board by the end of this year. And the project will be in construction next year. They anticipate, for instance, that a new traffic signal at 42nd and Columbia, which is integral to our project, should be operational about mid next year. But essentially their schedule will be out ahead of ours, and so it'll be fine for us.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I've got a question as well. Okay, thank you. I understand that a few years back when we begun this process, we had high hopes of being able to repurpose some facilities. And then a pandemic happened, and then we learned a lot about the facilities and our intentions to repurpose. From all of those lessons we've learned and you know, from the sort of repivoting of society since the pandemic, Are we approaching this parcel with any new ideas, programmatic elements that have changed? Are we exploring any new opportunities now that we know that we're not going to be able to repurpose the facilities?
Now that's a goddamn, see, he always asks good questions, but he's going to get some answer which won't answer his question and he won't follow up. Now he's done this numerous times where he's asked the right questions, but they give him some kind of bullshit answer and then he doesn't follow up. Let's see.
Yes, I mean,
That's why I know he knows what's actually going on. There's no doubt in my mind that Ozzy knows what's actually up, but he's part of that elite, and so he has to cover for the elites. He knows his role and he plays the role, but I actually think he knows what's actually happening. He's not blind, okay?
I think we kind of buried the lead in the resolution. I think the primary thing is we are building a brand new maintenance facility and a brand new operations, very much similar to the work that we recently completed at Powell Boulevard. And so while the program is based on Powell, I think what we learned along the way is how critical that the physical facility matches that.
See, he's not answering the question. You heard the question. Was have we learned anything since the scamdemic and the way things have changed with operations completely? That was the question. He's not answering that question.
Program specifically. A former executive director said something that's always stuck in my head. They said steps cost millions. And the workflow at a facility like this, every day, the efficiency of that workflow pays back dividends when you get it right. And I think when we entered that, I don't think we had that clarity, but I think as we went through this analysis and invested those funds to really understand.
See, he's not even anywhere near the actual question. Okay, he's way off. He's answering something else here.
Our own workflow and our own needs, and we're comparing that with the trade-offs with using the buildings. I think that is something that we really are bringing forward and is directly a reason why I think this motion and our investment and our continuation of our partnership with Stantec makes so much sense. I hope I answered your question.
No, you did not answer this question. You did not even come close to answering the question. Now let's see what Ozzy does. Let's see. Let's watch. I bet you Ozzy takes this answer and says thank you.
Well, thank you. It shows that we are revisiting the potential.
No, Ozzy, he didn't answer your question.
And I'm glad to hear that it's going to give us a little more flexibility to customize.
Yeah, you know he didn't answer. I know you know that he didn't answer your question. You're not fooling me, Mr. Gonzalez. You're not kidding. You're not fooling me. I know you know he did not answer your question.
Director Lewis?
Thank you. My question is kind of like Director Keith's.
Now, if I was up on that board, I would say, why are we proceeding with this when we have 22% budget cut in service, and we have no idea whether we're going to get anywhere near the ridership back that we had when we started this program? I mean, that's what my question would be. What makes you think we're going to need this garage at all?
It's kind of out there, but I always zoom in on keywords like must. And in the resolution, it says we must be operational by 2029.
Okay.
Is there...
Okay. I like it. That's a good question.
a contingency plan if we're not?
Nick, do you want to?
That means he hasn't. That means no. He said and then he's going to pass it to this guy.
Start that one and then I'll. I mean, I'm happy to, but
They don't have an answer to you. And what do they need a contingency? This is so far in the future. They don't need a contingency plan because it's so far in the future. Who knows what's going to happen between now and then? I mean, we've got wars, we've got banks going out of business, we've got pandemics that are still going on. There's so many things happening that this is completely a joke.
certainly don't want to step on my excellent project manager here.
I think the contingency plan would be just more stress on our other facilities, our other 3 facilities. So,
All right, well, that's an honest answer at least. But I don't understand why it would be more stress on anybody. I mean, you don't need this garage, okay? Anybody with a brain can see that.
Seeing those out with more buses as we grow service, not being able to remodel Center Street, which would delay our zero emission bus plan. So being able to get electrification into Center Street so we can have battery electric buses.
Yeah, that's all scam.
And so it would push all it out, and it would impact, our goal of getting to 2040.
Yeah, and I'll be dead.
And I might add,
and I'll be dead. And so will a lot of other people like this guy back here. And I don't know. They're not going to be dead. They're going to be here. But at least they're making fat stacks, you see. They're in government. Anybody who's hooked up with government is doing great. It's like my my pinned tweet on my Twitter, where must really fucked up this platform.
Well, let me tell you what I think is really happening. I think that we're going to go from chaos to the new dark age. The state of chaos which now obtains will inevitably degenerate into a new dark age of unreason, superstition, hysteria, and ignorance. All institutional systems are falling apart in direct ratio to the inflating rhetoric of success by system employees.
In direct ratio of system success by system employees, like that, like these two. See, this is an actual crime syndicate here, pretending that everything is a success. Meanwhile, all around you, there's this incredible suffering going on, but they don't care. They're all making fat checks and got their silly little easy jobs. And they're part of this, they're hooked into this tax revenue, which comes from rich and poor alike, but neither are rich unless they're like the rich may be hooked to this Stantec place. I don't know who they are, but they're obviously part of the structure.
in changes to our budget and cost.
Yeah, see, they try to ask some good questions. She's I understand where she's trying. You got to like Kathy Way, for example. She is my hero on this board. She at least tries. She tries, and she's defeated over and over and over, but she keeps trying.
Costs go up as time goes on.
Right,
So.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, they're smart. Now they're very happy with each other. They're buddies. He's the big shot. He's the underling, but they're very compatible. And so that's why it works.
Any further questions or comments from the board? All right, we'll move to a vote. All of those in favor?
And will it be close, ladies and gentlemen? Will there be a no vote?
Please say aye.
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 All opposed?
And it's unanimous.
Seeing none, the motion carries.
And
Thank
it's
you.
unanimous again, ladies and gentlemen, a unanimous vote. And on that note, I will end this fantastic episode of TriMet Board of Directors, starring Ozzy Gonzalez.